Thought that maybe the easiest thing and the best thing would be, just in case everybody doesn't know who everybody is, we'll go through and do some introductions, and then we'll go ahead and Lorna's going to talk about the end of the year stuff. I don't know about you guys, but it helps me if she explains that stuff to me, and just a finance review, and then we can ask questions of each other to make sure we're on the same page as far as the notice letters. They tend to be kind of vague statements, so that way we can get some clarity. Start to negotiate some points, wrap things up, determine a date, and compare notes. That sound all right? Well, I'm Marty Neistat. I'm the Director of Human Resources, and I'll let Lorna introduce herself, and we'll just kind of go around.
Lorna McPhail, Director of Business.
James Adams, Board Member.
Fred Patton, Board Member.
Frank Henderson, Board Member.
Jill Becker, and I teach at Seaman Middle School.
Jamie Leduc, I teach at Elmore.
Liz Crummins, I'm the librarian at Northern Hills.
Mike Wilson, Seaman High School.
Nathan McAllister, Seaman High School.
Luke Weens, Seaman Freshman Center.
Mike Cole, Seaman Middle School.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Lorna to
High level, I'll give you high level.
high-level stuff that.
I sent you the ending summary, fund summaries in your email. Did you get it, Liz?
Yes.
Okay, for fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20.
Yes.
What I gave you today, I didn't even think about this, I'm sorry. I was running around trying to do state budget and system conversions here. Is basically not all of these make up our actual reserve balance. So what I gave you today is our ending balances this year compared to last year, that this is what makes up our actual reserve balance. So this year we ended up $124,000 ahead of where we were in fiscal year 19, and it shows those balances. Basically, our reserve balance will cover about a month and a half of our expenses. So we don't like to get too much lower than that. I don't know if you have any questions on the fund summary. The ones down at the bottom that are negative, those are actually tied to grants where we don't get actual state or federal reimbursement till July for our June expenses. So that's why those show negative. We haven't received those funds yet. Do you have any other questions for me on year-end numbers?
Mike, because you were looking at the sheets, I was just making sure.
I did. I had looked them over.
Okay.
Yes.
No, we don't have any questions I don't think at this point. I think probably one of the biggest questions that a lot of people had was that since a lot of buildings and different individual budgets weren't allowed to spend down, where did that money go?
Budgets, we really didn't have that much that we had available for building budgets. I mean, the majority of their office supplies and instructional expenses were like $15,000 budgets for the year, and we cut them to like 10. We didn't have huge operating expenses that we were saved. The majority of our budget goes towards salaries, and contractually we had to pay all those salaries. So we saved on electricity, and we saved on office supplies, and that's about all we really saved. We saved a little bit on gas, but we were still running buses for food service, but we saved about $30,000 in gas. On gas, sorry, diesel bus gas. So that pretty much makes up about the 124 grand. We had several items that went over budget due to COVID expenses, buying extra cleaning supplies. I think the bombs that Rana had to purchase to clean the buses, to sanitize them right during spring break when we thought we were coming back were about $700 for so many buses. I mean, we had some extra expenses that we weren't counting on. And then one of our big expenses was food service. Mm-hmm. Typically, the revenue that she brings in from students to pay for lunch food, to pay for the lunches and the food, they pretty much net her salary. She brings in about $78,000 in revenue in lunch money, and we pay out about $80,000 in salaries. We had to cover all those salaries, so literally she had nothing left at the end of the year. So, does that explain?
I think so.
I mean, we paid everybody contractually. The only thing we saved on was a little bit of overtime. And I think our extra duty came in about $20,000 less than what it normally does.
Okay. So the biggest one was gas at $30,000, the one that we
Pretty much.
saved on,
Yeah.
but not electricity.
It was hit and miss on electricity. I mean, some saved 5,000, some saved 500. I mean, it just depends on the actual building. Because I mean, we still had the buildings up and running. We still had lights on. You know, principals that were still in there. I mean, we still had air conditioning on. We were still mowing lawns and
Custodians
paying.
were-
Yeah, custodians were still in the buildings and working. So
Would the cleaning supplies come from capital outlay? Like the bus bombs and.
some of
the
it did,
extra
yes.
stuff?
Some of it came from general fund. It just depends on what the expense was. Some of Jason's extra expenses for some ozone machine came from capital outlay. But buses and stuff paid for out of their transportation budgets. So, and a lot of line items went over.
Okay.
Any other questions on that?
I don't think so, not at this time.
Okay. And if you're like me, sometimes later on, you'll think of something
Yeah.
that it just didn't occur. Just holler, send me an email or whatever, and we can get you any answers that you need. Just clarification on some stuff to kind of have an idea, and I don't know, I'll go through some stuff, and I figure you probably have some questions about our notice letter as well. And that way we can make sure that we're on the same page and we're not talking two different things. You had on item 17, changes to the language in the sick leave bank section, and there was mention of another option for teachers.
Correct. Okay.
What kind of idea on what you were thinking?
So, you know, last year we made a change to sick leave bank and reverted back so teachers didn't have to pay out or, you know, repay, and that was greatly appreciated. And we started talking, and in the past, it has been past practice that if you have a pregnancy and it is a normal pregnancy, that does not get paid out through the sick leave bank. So if you don't have enough days set up, that's been past practice. It's technically not in the contract, but the committee that looks at sick leave things, having the pregnancy in there is not has been past practice. So we would like to look at addressing that and having a deeper conversation about that. But we also had a question, and we also had a thought that there are a lot of entities, schools, businesses, whatnot, that don't necessarily do a bank format, they do a request format. So if you need, you know, so many sick days because you have a surgery or because you have a pregnancy that you don't have enough days to cover, or whatever it happens to be, that you put out a request and then people can donate to you. And so we'd like to look more at that kind of option too. You know, we're open to kind of maybe doing a combination of the two together. That if it's not covered by the sick leave bank, that they can request those days or even switching it up. But we'd really like the ability to have the sick leave work for a vast majority of the staff. So that's kind of our thinking on that.
Okay. And you mentioned in item 34, request regarding due process.
Yes. So, for those of us who have been around a long time, we know that the state took out due process in that language, and we were a couple years without due process, and then the district added back in a form of due process. And we would like to negotiate a change in that format. So we would like, let me find my notes, to make it so that it looks similar to the way it was before it was taken away by the state. So if you are a new teacher or had never received a due process, then you would get it on your 4th contract. And then if you had been granted due process from another district, then you would receive it on your 3rd contract. Also, currently, we do not have a binding third-party decision, and we would like to see a binding third-party decision with the costs split between both parties.
And you had mentioned class size?
Class size is permissive. We are worried about, and now we're even more worried about the sizes
Sure.
of classes.
Sure.
But we're worried about the sizes of especially some of our specials classes. You know, we have buildings who have PE and music with a class and a half. Sometimes there's a para, sometimes there's not, depending on the population of the students that are in that room. But if you've got a class and a half, you're looking at 35-ish kids together with one teacher.
How many of those likely do you see that we have?
Northern Hills is all class and a half for PE music.
I'm just trying to size this. How many?
There are
Instances.
some,
We have a 3-track, like at Omaha, whenever there's a 3-track,
Okay.
they do it class and a half, so it only takes up 2 sections of
Okay.
in the schedule.
Now, West Enola does have a 1.5,
West
PE,
Enola and
but-
Logan
but
split.
there are 3 to 4 tracks at that,
Yeah.
consistently at that school.
And then we do double for kindergarten. So all of our kindergartners go to PE together and all of our kindergartners go to music together.
So just
That's
write that
double
down.
class.
Can you get that maybe to
Yeah.
Marty or somebody?
Yep.
Maybe
Sure.
Yep.
Share that out.
Yep.
Just to picture it a little bit better.
Yep.
How many instances of that?
We are getting, you know, we are seeing some larger class sizes, as you guys know, within just the individual classrooms, but one of our big worries is specials and being able to have that many kids together with just the one instructional teacher.
And I know that you mentioned benefits, and I'll let you know that, in fact, this afternoon I talked to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I think I communicated a little bit with Amy. They started off with a 19% increase, and it went to 14, and I think they're going to say again somewhere around 5 or 6% of an increase right now. I'm hoping that that's not the case, but I won't know until at least after this afternoon. They were about 8 weeks behind on getting us information. I'm sure that they would say that it was COVID related, but regardless of what the rationale was that has put us farther back, I will tell you guys that what we have done is we have put it out to market. Blue Cross Blue Shield doesn't know that unless they happen to be watching right now. Just to see if we can use that to have better leverage on that price. Was there something specific on the benefits that you guys had, or?
You know, which one are you looking at?
Gosh. Have to put my glasses back on.
Permissive number 2, maybe?
Permissive number 2, we just stuck in there because we were, okay, so health insurance, we stuck in as permissive number 2. A few years ago when the state said what you had to limit the number of things you could talk about. As a negotiating body, we decided to put health insurance as a permissive every single year so that neither party had to notice it up.
Sure.
Because it was required. So the permissive number 2 is there automatically. There are some benefits that we would like to talk about. One of them being Thank you for addressing interns real quick. I do have a question about that. Do we know our usage percent or our usage amount? Like, we are trying to figure out why they would initially start at 19%.
Well, I'll be honest with you, our number of claims was actually less. It had been down. So I don't have an answer to why it would have gone up, other than I'm sure what I will hear from them is that it's a response to the number of claims that they've had collectively with COVID-19. That's my anticipation on their answer.
Okay.
But specifically, our district, though, the usage
Right, the
is
numbers
down.
that I have
Yeah.
seen, we did not have more. And that's why I told our guy that we work with, we need to send this out and get bids, because that's just not right.
I will say though, it's across the board. We were expecting a huge decrease in our property casualty insurance on our buildings, and we got hit with a $90,000 increase due to COVID. They were shocked because we originally started our bid proposal on that like literally the week of spring break, and they guaranteed us for a month and a half our premiums were going to go down, and they were shocked when it came back due to all the COVID losses how much they were increasing premiums. So.
Did you read that? Okay. There were some different supplementals, like on number 2, it says the session would like to address discretionary leave, adopting flex or daytime, flex days or time, and adding a couple of supplementals, increasing one and adjusting some duties. Last year, the board noticed up extra duty, and we also noticed up extra duty, so I know that it was a goal to look at extra duty, and so we would again like to look at that and figure out how we can compensate teachers who are spending time away from their families a little better. We haven't looked at extra duty in, I can't even remember when. It's been years. I'm gonna guess at least 10 that we've looked at increasing extra duty pay. We would like to see extra duty pay go all the way up. Seriously, what did I do with my notes?
And just a flat.
Thank you.
across.
Extra duty
Yeah.
pay go up to 21 per hour and then not have any levels. So right now we have 3 different levels, which makes it difficult for trying to figure out, okay, well, what level am I at? Do I put in for this amount? Do I put in for that amount? It doesn't matter what you're doing, you're still away from home, you're still away from your family. You're still working outside of your normal duty day, and so we think that that should be compensated equally. For supplementals, we are proposing 1 increase, 1 new, and then I wanted to give you a heads up about 1, and I didn't know if we needed to do something about it or if it was going to be internal. So the heads up one, the middle school FBLA, they would like to have an assistant, and they're proposing, and please correct me if I say this wrong, Jill. Okay. They are proposing that they split the pay currently that the FBLA is getting for supplemental. Now I know in the past that if 2 people wanted to do the same positions and split it, that's just been done internally. And I didn't, but they would like to have 2 people do it for next year. And so I didn't know if that's something that we needed to work on at the table and put in.
No, I think the negotiated agreement has that can be done.
Okay.
If 2 people do it, then it can be split.
Okay.
I think it may have, and this is off the top of my head, I could look, but I think it has something about with administrative approval or whatever the case. So that one's one we can probably.
And that's kind of what we figured, but I just wanted to bring it up.
I would rather you do that
Yeah.
than not, absolutely.
We would also like to increase the cheer percentage. Currently, the cheer sponsor coach gets 10%. This person is in charge of cheering for football, for basketball. There's summer camps, there's clinics. There's a ton of work when it comes to being a cheer coach. and they get 10%. I don't want to downplay the amount of work that our head coaches do, but our head football coach gets 20%, and it's one season. And yes, our head football coach is going to do other work other than just in that one season. But it's 20% that one season he's responsible for going to games. Where a cheer coach is responsible for going to games for 2 different seasons and summer camps.
What's the percentage of? I'm sorry.
The percentage for cheer right now is at 10.
No, I mean 10% of what?
10% of the
Of the
base.
base.
So right now,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I
Yes.
just didn't know.
You're
I
fine.
was like, I don't know what ticket sales. What are we talking here? I was like,
That would be good for some of us.
I was like, I don't know what we're looking at. Sorry, just trying to make sure I know what's going on.
Nope, you're good. It's better to ask than to not know.
Well, yeah.
I like that ticket sale.
I know.
It depends on the
Participate.
season.
Yeah.
And the sport. The ones that don't have ticket sales,
I
that's just
know.
voluntary.
Yeah.
How about participation?
Jill's like, I want to vote to increase the
Yeah.
ticket price.
Co-sponsor.
Students are no longer free.
So that's our increase. And the one we would like to look at adding,
Liz, going back to
yeah,
that
sorry,
one,
go ahead.
You'd like to see it increase
I would
from
like
10
to see it increased.
To,
I'd like to see equal with the head of football or basketball,
okay,
so
so
20%.
20.
Yeah. The one that I would like to add, so this last year, I'm just gonna have to use your name because I don't know any other way to discuss this. Amber Poteet is an ELL instructor here in the district. And before this last year, they were giving her the stipend that SPED gets because she is in charge of doing all the paperwork for ELL. She does all the state testing for ELL, and that's just kind of what she does. She does it for K-12. Her teaching assignment is K-8, I believe, but she does all of the testing and all the paperwork and everything for K-12 for all of the ELL students in our district. This last year there was an issue because technically Amber is not SPED. So giving her a SPED stipend was not really what we were supposed to be doing all this time. They were able to work out an agreement to give her the money that would have equaled the SPED stipend, but we would like to see a supplemental put in specifically for that position so that she doesn't have to worry about working that out each time.
Kind of an ELL coordinator.
Yeah, ELL coordinator title or something like that. That would be equal to what the SPED was getting.
And I'm using my calculator. Everyone may think I was rude in texting. That's
I
the
just
accountant in me figuring up numbers.
Figured you were
So
taking notes.
no, I was calculating. So just wanted to not look like I was being rude.
And I'm sorry, I need to address my own personal issue on, I made an error. We would also like to again see an increase in our SPED stipend from 4 to 6%. And I don't know how you would go about, as a team, when we were talking about a SPED stipend, we were talking about a SPED stipend for our teachers who are considered SPED teachers, not, why can't I remember this word, Jenny? Not auxiliary?
No.
The OTD,
Yeah,
like,
so when I'm talking SPED teachers, and I don't know how, if you would have to make a different supplemental for that, I'm talking the ones who are in charge of writing specifically an IEP, are teachers who are in the buildings as SPED teachers who go around. So like in Northern Hills, it would be 3 teachers. I don't know how many we have at the high school or the other schools anymore. Jamie, are you the only one at?
We have
You have 2 in their building. So though we have 100, I think I was told last year, 100 people getting the SPED stipend, I am not talking about increasing for everyone. I'm talking about just the teachers who have that resource room or who are in those buildings. doing that job.
You know what that number looks like? How many that would be?
I don't, but I can get it. Okay, I'll put it in my notes. Okay, thank you.
And you've got a mention of rearranging snow days.
Just,
Figure I better ask before I
no, I appreciate it.
jump to a conclusion.
So currently, we have in our negotiated agreement that the first snow day is free, the second and the third snow day are, that we make up, and then the third snow day is free, and then, no, sorry, second and the third snow day we make up, the fourth snow day is free, and we don't have to make it up, and then anything after that is, let's hope the state does something that tells us we don't have to go as many days. If otherwise, we're up to the state, like, on that. We would just like to see it so that the first 2 snow days we don't make up, and then the next 2 that we do.
First and second free, third and fourth make up.
Correct.
And right now, just the first is free? I'm so confused.
Right. Right now, the first one is free, the second and third get made up.
Correct.
And then the fourth one
It's
starts to
free.
be free.
Yeah.
Do you know how long ago that was? put in?
We just did that, I think this last year was our first year on that, so we negotiated, it's only been,
Okay.
this last school year was the first year that we did that on.
First and second, we should bring third and fourth, I mean, yeah.
Correct. Yep, yep.
And then also on that number 2, we put in discretionary leave. We would like to see everything be discretionary leave. We sent out a questionnaire at the beginning of kind of the cycle. I sent it out in February, asked for teachers' inputs on what they would like to see this coming up year as far as negotiated items. And overwhelmingly, we had people tell us if they wrote down something that they would like to see in the comment section, it was all days discretionary. For us, it's, and maybe for you guys, it's just easier. We don't have to worry about, okay, is this going to be a sick day? Is this going to be a discretionary day? If it's just leave, we just mark it off. Now, currently, we have so many discretionary days and so many sick days, and if we don't use them, they all roll into like our sick bank. We can talk about what to do with that, but we would like to see the 12 that we get to all just be leave. That, especially this coming up year, is going to make life probably a little bit easier, instead of trying to figure out what to put it under. Because as teachers, we question, okay, if I've got, you know, so many sick days and so many leave days, when does it start coming out from the different pots? You know, how many days do I have in this pot versus how many days do I have in this pot? And I know we get that every month, but if it's just leave, that's just a little bit easier to keep track of.
Well, can you tell me the process for, if you are out of sick, how do you work that out with your building administrator?
If we're out sick,
If you're out of sick days,
if we're out of sick days,
but you need
it
to take a sick day.
does not even deal with our building administrator. We have to talk with HR.
Okay.
So if we're completely out of sick days, do you mean for the year or like totally gone?
Just
Then,
totally gone.
if we're totally gone, then the district will dock us a day of pay for every day that we have to be absent.
Even though you could already have some over here waiting some other days that aren't
So-
classified as sick days. And that's what you're arguing, I guess, right? You're advocating for is the
Well,
ability to
I-
use other days that aren't.
Well,
sick days.
and we assume that's what happens, is that if we run out, so we start every year with 7 sick days, and then the 5 discretionary days.
Right.
If we run out of those 7 sick days, does it go then to our 5 discretionary days that we have for this year? Or does it get taken out of the pool that I had left over from before?
Right.
There's,
That's why I'm asking, I don't know the answer to that.
and I don't know the answer to that
Yeah.
either. But if we could just start with 12 leave days,
Just time.
it's just time.
Gotcha.
We also we were wondering if there was a way we could do hourly coverage. So let's say you need to leave early, or you need to come in like just an hour. You know, is there a way that we could do an hourly coverage like within the building? And I'm only bringing it up here because every building seems to do it different. We understand that if you have to get a sub, like if there is absolutely no way to do it and you have to get a sub, yes, it is a half day, because that's how you pay subs. Okay, we understand that that's a thing. Okay, but if we need to leave early, or if we need to come in late, and you can do coverage in building, we would like to work something where that is possible and not have it docked, because depending on your building where you're at, currently, some buildings have you take a whole half day of discretionary when all you really need to do is leave 30 minutes early, you know, and some buildings don't. And so we just like to see that consistent.
So Liz, in the buildings that don't, do you know if they have kind of a framework such as 1 hour or 2 hours, or what they kind of use as a guide?
Jill, do you want to?
It just really depends on, it's not really a framework, it just depends on your building administrator.
Okay,
I mean-
but you say some buildings they require.
So like if I need to
half
go
days,
watch
some
my,
do
if I
not.
need to leave at 2:45 because my daughter's playing 3:30 game at Washington Rural, then someone can cover that last 15 minutes. Now, if you're gonna be gone more than an hour, let's say, then the expectation is you're taking a half a
Okay,
day,
so kind
when
of an
only you
hour
need is an
what you're
hour.
saying then. Okay.
Yeah, and really, we're having teachers not in the building. I mean, if Liz wants to go watch her daughter, and really she just needs to be gone that hour, but then she's been missing contact with their kids for a whole half a day because there's not that option of getting an hour coverage.
Or even if you're going for an appointment.
Right,
You don't have to take a half day and do sub pay.
yeah, just need 20 minutes to get back from the appointment. If you have a 7:15 appointment and you can't get there right at, by 7:50, but you could get there by 8:10, someone to cover that 20 minutes.
So just to make sure, you'd like it to be consistent,
Yes.
which we would too. And you would also, and this is why I'm asking, I want to make sure that I'm hearing what you're saying. If there were a way, rather than a half day, which is a tough deal, you're gone for 1 hour and you're charged for the whole amount, and I get that. If there were a way to do it incrementally, when you have like a teacher, if Mike covers for me and I'm gone the last hour of the day, and obviously we pay him because he covered, say it's his planning period or whatever,
Right.
and we give him sub pay for that, but it's not a half-day sub pay. If there were a way to do an increment, an hour, something like that, you would prefer to see something to where it were like that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Do they get sub pay or is it extra duty?
It would be extra
Extra
duty.
duty.
So it's been a few years since I was at the high school, but when I was there, and there was a different administrator when I was at the high school, so, that's neither here nor there. But at the time, if you could get someone to cover your class, and they volunteered to cover your class, then they didn't get extra duty for that. Like, they just did it out of the kindness of their heart. Okay, and then you would let your building principal know, hey, I'm gonna be gone the last 30 minutes, so-and-so is covering my class. And then person who covered just knew they weren't getting extra duty because you went and asked them when they volunteered. If you needed to be gone and the principal had to find you somebody, that person got extra duty.
I'm just thinking long-term system conversion and timesheets. I'm trying to make sure all this work, I'm trying to think of two different scenarios here at the same
Thi-
time.
This is good to bring up now, because as we do the system
Yeah,
conversion.
like
now's
we're
the
working on
time.
pay codes and extra duty
Right.
codes
If we
and
were
those
gonna
kinds
do
of things, so
something,
I'm trying to
that would be-
think, I wanna make sure we have it set up, even if it's not finalized.
Well, and also to get that coverage amount, you had to work a certain amount of that hour for it to count if you were
Right.
going to get the pay
Like
as
more
well.
than half of the period or whatever.
And it needs to be, it would have to be during your plan time, so if it was like, if I covered during one of my team time, I would be paid for that because it was during my team time and not my plan time.
Okay.
Two different things.
And I noticed you've got something about flex days.
So, yes, so currently, we have days where we just have like building work days or grade card days. And a lot of times teachers will do grade card stuff at home, they can, you know, our thing is, if you're doing that stuff at home and if your goal for that half a day, you got in service in the morning and your goal for that half a day is that's grade card time, we would like to see that as a flex time. So if you've got your grade card done, and that was the goal for that time, you know, every quarter, then you've done what you're supposed to do during that time. You've put in that time, you should be able to leave the premises. Because you put in those hours. You just didn't do it during that specific afternoon.
Sure, that makes sense.
So you're just there for work you already
Well,
done?
you're working, and you're, I mean, don't get me wrong, teachers are
Right.
working on all these other things too, and so many teachers would still stay because they're there.
Now I gotta be here.
You know, right, they're there, they're going to stay. You know, there are so many teachers who will stay, but if you have the option of being able to leave, I think some teachers would take advantage of that. You know, I've put in my time for this, I've got all my prep done for the next week, or I'm going into spring break and I don't have prep for the next week, you know, I would like to go. They'd have their grade card done. Mike?
Previous district I was in had a flex day over Christmas. Your grades were due when school started on January whatever. You can come in and do your time, or you can do your grades at home. You're expected to have your grades done when the class started the next semester. And so they just built in a day in there, counted as a day, a work day. I never went in. I could do my grades from home, but it was kind of nice to have that flexibility.
With that,
We want to give you guys time to ask questions too.
yep, nope, I'm just making sure that I've hit everything that I was supposed to hit.
There are some other things. I do have some questions.
Yes.
Have them also. Back to our insurance.
Sure.
You get a quarterly usage. Does Blue Cross send you a quarterly usage of how much we're using over time? Is that something we have an idea of what's going on?
I have not seen one,
Okay.
but I'll put it that way.
I don't remember.
So just once a year, they say you've used too much or you haven't used enough, or, okay. So, this is for
To be,
Lorna.
yeah, I think it seems like they always say you use too much.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems to be a trend. I guess that's spoiled for next year.
And a lot of times what they do is they are estimating the last quarter of the year, but because they didn't get us all the information, we were able to obtain the specific number of claims that there were.
Okay, this one's for Lorna. On the sheet you sent out, Marty sent, but I'm sure it came from you.
Yeah.
Our ending balances for special ed
Mm-hmm.
are different. On this sheet
oh,
and
go ahead.
this sheet.
Oh, I think interest,
I think like $1,948 difference.
I printed this on June
Okay.
29th
Okay.
and the 30th, no, sorry. I printed this on June 30th. July 1st, they credit us our interest for June, and so Jolie went and backed it in. I'm sorry, I forgot to
Okay, that's
reprint
all right.
those.
And it's not a big amount.
We have one.
Oh, I don't have that file
Yeah.
up. Okay, thank you.
I mean, I'll give you mine.
No, no, no,
Want
you're
it.
good. I'm like, I don't even know what they're talking about. I got it now.
And I'm sorry, I completely
Okay.
forgot she booked that interest and backed it in.
Well, I looked over all this, this is the first time I've seen this one, so. Some other things on COVID. We don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to be in school all year, part of the year? We're in class, a kid is tested positive that's in our class. Do we have to be on isolation for 14 days after that? That takes a lot of insurance. Then you're in there, and then a month later another kid tests positive, and now you have to be on isolation for 14 more days. No one has that many sick days. So I know that the federal government has built some in on that CARES Act. Do you have any idea how that's going to work, Marty?
Well, the CARES Act, what it does is the first 14 days that you're, if you are quarantined, state, federal, whoever it is that makes that decision, then it is covered. Then the time beyond that, it starts to cycle as far as how much pay you would get. If I remember correctly off the top of my head, 15 to like 30 is like 2/3 pay, and then it cycles down. I think as this continues to go on, that will become one of those things that has to be addressed, but I don't know how it'll be addressed.
So would the district purchasing short-term disability for teachers be a good idea in this kind of situation?
I don't know. I'll be honest, I haven't.
As a teacher, I have short-term disability, maybe long-term, I don't know. I can't imagine not having that, but I know not everybody does buy that.
Right.
I think, in the past, if I was exposed to, strep, the flu, the cold, I can be back to work in a day or two. I can bounce back from that. But, in this current situation, we can't do that.
Okay.
So what is that going to look like for someone who, if we are exposed at work, where are those days going to come from? So is that,
Use your days, do you?
I mean,
Not right now.
Right now, you don't have to use your days.
So that ends in December.
Right, but
They
I
haven't-
suspect
they
that
haven't
there will
passed
be
anything yet.
something that will replace that. I don't think,
And
We're all sitting waiting too.
the CARES Act ends December 31st, I believe.
correct.
Maybe you just said that, I don't know, I was listening to like two other people at the same time and reading what someone typed. So we need to, what do we do after that? Because this isn't going away.
And we know that
That's
this
Christmas.
wasn't in our notice letter, and we know we're gonna have to talk about all kinds of things that were, so much has changed since March. But we would like to see, we know that the CARES Act takes care of us from August to December. But what happens after December? If the federal government picks it up and extends that kind of activity, fantastic. But what happens if it doesn't? As a specials teacher, I'm in a building with 400 kids. I see every one of those kids every single week. My chance of needing to quarantine is super high. And so what happens with that? So we would like to kind of talk about how that would look. We are very much open to doing just an MOU for the year, not necessarily have an addendum to the contract. We don't expect it to add to the actual contract. We would like to see the district pick up where the CARES Act is if that kind of stuff doesn't get continued on by the federal government. Would the district be looking at doing something like that for the second semester? How does that look? We have all types of questions about like PPE for teachers. Who supplies the PPE for teachers? Are we needing to supply our own? Is the district supplying us PPE? I know that Jill uses a face shield for summer school and she loves it.
I do. I almost wore it today, but I didn't want to forget it for tomorrow after school. I love my shield, and it was provided to us,
Right.
and I'm very thankful for it, very.
And so that's fantastic for our summer school teachers. We're just
Yeah.
wondering for everyone when we come back.
I think we were part of us, we were waiting to see what the county was gonna say. 'Cause
Right.
At one point in time, Illinois came out and said teachers couldn't wear them. So
Oh.
we were waiting to see what our county
County
said
said
before
Say
we.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched
You know,
that.
before we
I
waited
know,
for
I
a
looked
huge
it up.
expense.
And I know that some of this stuff that
It
I'm
was-
gonna bring up that you guys are already talking about, but we just wanna let you guys know that
Yeah.
we're thinking about it too.
Sure.
We're talking, cleaning supplies. Who's providing the cleaning supplies? Who does the cleaning? Our teachers doing the cleaning, our custodian staff doing the cleaning. Who does all of that cleaning?
Policy language for when parents send the sick, with
Right,
sick
so,
kids.
what happens when a kid gets sick? What happens when a kid comes to school sick? None of our health rooms are gigantic. So you've got a kid that comes to school sick, they're running a fever, the kid, you call the parent, let them know they're running a fever, or they threw up, you call the kid, call the parent. What do you do with that child while you're waiting for that parent to come in? What do you do with a parent sends their kid to school sick? How does that happen? Thank you. We didn't know if there was anything with HVAC. Do we have all the right filters on our HVAC system that we're supposed to have? We have so many rooms in our buildings that don't have windows, that teachers can't open up a window to get fresh air, whether that fresh air is warm or cold, the whole middle part of the high school. So we're just wondering about that kind of thing. And also, we're wondering about supplementals. How will supplementals work? Currently, the district gives supplementals all at the beginning of the year. The teachers sign their contracts. Once that contract is signed, does that basketball coach still get their supplemental if they can't have basketball season? What is all that looking? We have the position that money has been earmarked to go towards salaries and to go towards personnel, and we would like to see that continue to go towards salaries and personnel. If that means that if a coach can't coach because their season is canceled, maybe that coach can do some other things within the district or some other things with that time that would then earn that person that money. But especially when you're talking about some of our sports, if, like I said earlier, if the head basketball coach can't coach, for either girls or boys, that's 20%, of your base. That's a chunk of change for that coach. And so we would like to kind of talk about how that person can make sure that their income is still stable in what they get. Last one. We didn't know if there was anything being done about high-risk employees. Employees that are medically high risk. I know we do have some in the district that are definitely scared to come back. What kind of accommodations can we make for our high-risk employees? Can they be the ones that do the online? How are we going to address those employees?
And I don't necessarily, as you can guess, I don't actually have all the answers to that.
We did not expect you to.
And part of it will come out as we continue to do the continuous learning plan. Some of those answers will be there. Some of them won't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the truth. And things like the CARES Act, we're all kind of in the same boat. I don't know that even the easiest, but maybe that's the best word, would be if the federal government extends it, if it's needed, which at this point I would say, I would anticipate that it will be needed. Then what would that look like and how does it work? Is it the same act or do they tweak it? And those are all things I have no idea.
Right, and I guess our position on that would be that I would hate to rely on the federal government to do anything when it comes to those kinds of things, and that if they do, it's fantastic, but we would like to see some sort of an agreement that says if they don't, this is what's going to happen. And if they do, then that just doesn't get applied. But
And one possibility could be that as we get farther down the road, that we can always have memorandums of understanding that we add to, as we need to,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those, I feel almost evasive in the answer, but it's tough because I don't
And
have
honestly,
an
we
answer.
did not expect you to have those
Yeah.
answers today, but we wanted to make sure that that you guys knew we were open to dialogue and that we have
Absolutely.
some, very big concerns when it comes to those kinds of things for the teachers and staff of the district.
Sure.
I don't mean to speak for anybody but myself, I guess, but I would absolutely, I totally appreciate that and the place you guys are in walking into this school year. Nathan's on it, I'm on it, Fred's on it. I don't know if anybody else is on it, but yep. The learning task force, they're talking about those very things and they all are giant question marks. Jason's got ideas for HVAC concerns. We've got ideas for how to do teaching and learning in a ton of different models and structures, transportation, food, all of it. It's honestly a mess. I mean, how do you do? School was already hard. I mean, before this. So flexibility and being there for each other and sort of linking arms and all those cliche things. It's like this is the time to do all that because it's not going to get easier. It's going to get worse. So I appreciate hearing the concerns, especially from you. I hope your membership hears that we are looking at that and we don't take those decisions lightly. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that not just the students are safe, but you guys are absolutely just as safe, if not more so in some regard. You're getting handed who knows what coming in those doors every day. So, I don't know, I guess I don't have anything else to say about that, other than we appreciate your sentiment, and that is definitely where the board is focused right now.
Okay.
Is trying to figure out how to do school safely in the fall. And frankly, how to do it safely right now, hence why we're all wearing masks, so we can go to school in the fall.
And I will say it's been the most wonderful thing doing summer school the last
That's
couple
been
weeks.
great to see the pictures.
I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful
Yeah,
to be
good.
in the building with the students, and they've done a really, I'm just speaking at the middle school, but they've
Yeah.
done a really nice job. And I feel like we've been provided a lot of resources
Yeah.
and supplies,
That's
and
great.
and so that's a really, a big positive, and I know the staff that are working there are very appreciative.
Yeah, we're gonna do everything we can, I guarantee you. I don't know what that looks like, that's a little open-ended.
You can
But-
come and see what it looks like. The middle school's great. Come on up. You just model that everywhere. We'll be good.
Yeah.
I do know Jason Holder's put in multiple requests for cleaning, and he's working on a plan, and he's already given me estimates for custodial overtime to be cleaning rooms and those kinds of things. So I do know cleaning supplies will be provided. I do know that. And he's buying some, like I said, they bought 2 for summer school, and they're buying, I think, some more of these please don't ask me details, but something about an ozone machine that can come in and it does something to the air, and it's got
Zaps your
this.
room or something,
Yeah, and I mean, it can like clean and disinfect the
Yeah,
room in like 5 or 10
airplanes
minutes
or
or
that
something.
spray.
I don't know, something crazy. It sounds like
Use that
science
in my
fiction to
house.
me, but anyway.
But that's the kind of stuff that's gonna come out of that task force, I hope, is
Come off our
some little bit
germ
more
gets
clear
in.
answers on some of that stuff.
I would love that.
It's supposed to clean it without having, like right now, like some of the solutions they have, you spray it on and you can't wipe it off, it has to stay wet.
Right.
And then it takes, so long to dry and blah, blah, blah. This eliminates that process.
14 days.
So I do know he's working on that, and he's already given me overtime estimates and those kinds of things for custodians doing extra cleaning. So don't worry about cleaning supplies.
Did you have any more questions, or do we want to go to
I
the end of
have
this
some
letter?
more.
Okay.
I live out in this, we live in America, supposed to be the greatest technological place in the world, and we have no internet where we live. Satellite internet is 0.
I don't live in the middle of nowhere.
We have CenturyLink, which is equivalent to dial-up, and will not do a Zoom meeting type of thing. So I ended up having to buy a jetpack. I can afford that because I'm an older teacher, but I don't know if our new teachers can afford another $50 or $75 or $100 a month so that they can teach online. So that's something to at least give some thought to, and what do we do for the places that
I think
have
it's a
no
great
internet?
suggestion to consider. I mean,
Yeah.
good feedback, I don't know.
Yeah. I've tried everything to get better internet.
I've got ugly things sticking out the top of my roof now, still not working.
Well, that direct site
Yeah.
internet should work, except I live at a lake where it's all trees,
So
so there is
I
no
finally-
direct sight anywhere.
I finally got rid of AT&T after like 9 years of no internet, and got that direct site thing. They put it on the side of my house. It worked perfect until the leaves came on the trees.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't work. And they're like, well, of course it doesn't work. There's leaves on the trees. I'm like, did you not know there were leaves were going to come at some point in time? But now they moved it. It's beautiful.
But like a
It's
rooftop
working,
antenna
kinda.
now sticks way up
Mine's
into
Yeah,
like a
right.
periscope.
I live in town, I'm fine.
I'm done.
Did you guys have any more questions about our notice letter?
No, I think we're okay for right now unless you guys do. And I apologize, but I know we made this for an hour-long meeting. And I know there are some people that have other meetings they have to get to. One of the things that I think we probably want to do is set another date for the next meeting.
We do. I think the people watching though, however, would like for you to go through and talk about, because I did get a number of emails about
Absolutely.
what was meant by this and what was meant by that. So if we could go through and talk about your
Sure.
guys' notice letter.
You bet.
So the first question, I guess we'll just start at the top. Under mandatory items, you have 3 things for number 26 for days of duty, hours of work, and then hours of work again. So on days of duty, you are wanting to add a day of duty. And when you mean duty, you mean contact days with kids?
Correct.
Okay. And according to your letter, you are not specific on whether that comes with adding a day and extending a contract or taking it from professional development?
Right. That would be one of those where we could discuss either way.
Okay. On hours of duty, you would like to add 50 minutes to each day, but then on the next line you have, we suggest requiring teachers to report for 15 minutes prior and then staying for 15 minutes after the end. So currently we do that.
Not everywhere.
Okay.
And it has more to do with just a consistency issue than anything else.
Like in the buildings, you want every building for it to say, you're
Right. If
coming
it would,
in.
it has more to do with the wording.
But does that include the 15 minutes of each day?
The one before it? No, they're separate.
But if you add 15,
Right, but
They're separate, yeah.
Yes,
Right.
two out
They're
separate. One,
Okay.
two separate
at
items.
15 minutes a day. 2, consistently enforce what we have
Right.
now in most, so
okay.
the 15 before, 15 after.
That would increase to more than 30. Then 45
Does that make sense?
split,
Just
right?
2 separate lines that didn't-
So that would be
They
40,
want to lengthen their day,
lengthen our day.
and then enforce that everybody makes it.
The first one, right now, the
So-
agreement says 7 hours, 15 minutes. It would be 7 hours,
30 minutes.
Correct. And then the second one, okay, so
Oh, the 7
currently,
hours, 30 minutes.
currently in our contract, we have our 7 hours and 30 minutes. It just says, our contract says, and our negotiated agreement says we are on duty for 7 hours and 30 minutes. So on the second part of that, you are suggesting that we are on duty for 7 hours and 7 hours and 30 minutes, with 15 minutes being before school starts and 15 minutes being after.
Right.
Right.
15 minutes before the beginning of school and 15 minutes after the end of school.
Okay. So I guess my question to that would be, is that not taken care of in the school's handbook? Or you,
The negotiated agreement is the ultimate thing to be able to guarantee that things happen.
correct, I guess I am seeing this more of an administrative issue. Like if your principal is not saying, hey, why are you leaving early?
Right, and again, we can
I know, I'm
talk
just-
about it, just
thinking.
For
of-
clarification,
okay.
sure.
On number 4, for job vacancies, so under the negotiated permissive items, you have item number 4, job vacancies. We wish to discuss having all in-house candidates apply for internal positions through the Talent Ed portal. The Talent Ed portal is our new portal, correct?
Correct.
I'm just clarifying to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And currently, the internal positions, I guess I'm wondering why you want that in the contract.
Consistency again.
Okay.
So that there are, every position should be listed through Talent Ed as a, you know,
I don't disagree.
and we want everyone to go through the same process to be hired. And what has happened is there have been, especially supplementals, that's not the case in the past.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of being consistent, and that way everybody can feel like, hey, I had the same opportunity, and there was no favoritism or anything like that.
Okay.
It's a matter of, if Liz is interested in whatever the position
right.
is,
Yes.
you have just as much opportunity as Mike.
Okay. I like that in theory, because I think everyone does need the same opportunities to be able to, a lot of times people don't even know a position was open. And so I do like that everyone needs to apply. I have filled out the Talent Ed, and it's really lengthy if you're just applying for a supplemental.
The good news is, once you've done it, you don't have to do it again. You can go back in and you can make adjustments to it and apply for different positions.
Because it was.
It is.
But Marty, you're talking all
This should
positions,
take
right?
2
Both
hours.
internally,
He's
Could-
talking all positions.
yeah, supplemental,
teaching.
yes, it's long, but how long are we posting those too? Because I don't think that is necessarily always consistent either. There's been some questions regarding that as well.
For internal positions, it should be 5 days.
So every position is
And
posted
by
for
internal,
5.
it's supplemental, like supplemental
No.
positions, it's 5 days, or?
No, to be posted internally. That means within the district itself,
Okay.
not necessarily out on like Kansas teaching jobs and stuff like
So
that.
it is posted on Talent Ed for 5
5
days.
So then how would we
Yeah, how would we know? to go?
you would notify teachers then that this position is available?
We can discuss having
Okay.
that be an
Also,
item.
would that be within the building? So
Right.
would administrators still be able to move, especially elementary kids or elementary teachers around, or would they?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, right now, it's been kind of past practice that if you need a teacher, if you need a 4th grade teacher, an administrator can just move you to that position. Because since elementary teachers are certified, within a chunk of grade levels, they can just move you. So would that still be practice? They would still be able to move you? I don't expect you to be, I just thinking these are questions that
Right.
that are gonna come up.
Sure.
Okay? Can they still move you to just those positions? Or like we had a situation where we had someone hired for Northern Hills for kindergarten, and the district ended up needing to move them to a different school. Should that have been reopened? I guess, all those
When you-
different.
I guess a question for whoever, but when you're hired, you're just hired as an elementary
Teacher.
right? Not for a specific spot. We assign you to 4th grade at Logan, but. you're
Except when
really
you
hired.
interview, you're interviewed for a specific spot.
Yeah, but
It says the
the
position.
contract says
Yes.
you're just hired as an elementary
Correct,
teacher.
And that you
So
can be
that's
moved
how we
any,
put you where
correct.
you're needed.
Correct.
But like
Yes.
at the secondary, it's different though. If a
Yeah.
position comes open and I am
Right.
certified to teach science, that job is gonna be posted for 5 days, so anyone, or if the principal knows I want that, they slide us over to it.
It should be posted for 5 days.
Yeah.
And I think that's great that that's been noticed. I think this is something that needs to be.
Yeah, I'm not against it,
We're
I'm just
100%
wondering like the ins and
agree,
outs,
because
and,
it's not
Right.
I'm totally open to discussion, I'm just, throwing out the questions on
Right,
feasibility.
it has more to do with a matter of fairness and equity for you guys.
Yep, I agree, okay. Temporary leave, it says, you talked about discretionary days, and that you wish to discuss language to discourage staff members from regularly using discretionary leave on professional development days. I guess our first question to that would be, why, and the type of language. Those are kind of the questions that we're going to want answered as we
Sure.
discuss that one. The why, and then do you have numbers about, you know, teachers using that? Do we have that kind of data? You know, in the past, when this has been brought up, we've been told it's, you know, it costs the district money, but if you're using them for professional development days, you don't have to have a sub. So it's actually not costing the district any money when it comes to that kind of thing. So that's our big question on that one.
Sure.
Set June 1 deadline for teachers to turn in requests for salary column movements for the following year. Teachers have until August 31st to complete requirements and transcript to turn in. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Again, that has more to do with consistency.
Okay.
That way everybody knows, hey, if I don't have it in by June 1st, then I'm not eligible to move to the column. It just, the idea behind it is to clear it up.
And again, the June 1 deadline is just to let you know that I will be able to move.
Right.
Okay.
You would have to turn in your form by that point. Now, if you're taking classes for like masters, you would still be able to finish those. We just need the transcript by August 31st.
Okay.
All of that would stay the same. This just gives a deadline to have the form turned in. If it's not turned in June 1,
Okay.
then you have to wait till
Okay.
next year.
And then the August 31st is because then your new contract pay time starts
Right.
September 14th.
You would get a September.
So
That's
that would
the
give.
right. That's the
Okay.
last day that we would have that we could verify.
Okay.
Sure.
And then the last one, reword the employee evaluation procedure. We suggest continuing to include that there will be an evaluation using a tool created with teacher input, but would remove a specific evaluation from the agreement. Our question on that is if we mention that there is an agreement in the negotiated contract, would that agreement still be required to be negotiated? Would it be like an addendum like the supplemental is? Like I can see why you would want to make that document shorter, but we would still want to be able to negotiate what is being,
What's in the
what's
document.
in the document.
Absolutely. You would still be able to negotiate what's in the document. That wouldn't change it. The document itself just wouldn't be part of the negotiated agreement.
So as long as there was understanding and put in there that.
Right.
we
We would want the wording to say, just like as it has been, that the teachers would have input on whether or not any changes occur or anything like that.
Okay. And just take it out of the contract and have it as an addendum like supplementals or
Right.
stuff like that. Okay.
The idea would be to clean up the negotiated agreement.
I don't know how long that is, but it's what, 45
Yes.
pages now
It's-
without it, so.
Every time I lose it, turn it off.
Exactly.
Right, it is, that section is very
Thank you.
long. Yes. Okay. Do you guys have any other questions about their? Did we have questions that my phone keeps going out on people do. Okay. I think that gives us a good spot to start. Should we go ahead and look at our calendars for our next meeting?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Start with what year is
Can we start?
The year that doesn't end.
it? November 37.
Do you wanna try next week?
I don't use my phone.
Um,
Paper copy at home. I'm not joking.
I can do,
You just minute print out.
I can do next week. What is, next
Yes.
week? Do you guys have any days you cannot do? We'll have to do the afternoon again. Or are you done?
I'm done
Oh,
on
you're-
Thursday. We started early. This is our 4th week, so we're good, we're done. So I can do morning.
I think it's just summer school now.
Okay. Okay. Mike?
I'm
do you have
good.
any
I'm
dedicated-
good the
do you have
next
any
2
dedicated?
weeks.
Monday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay. So we'll just fill next week for you then? is
Tuesday
what
the
you're saying?
14th?
Okay.
So, those 3 days.
Morning?
Do you guys have time on the 15th?
Morning?
I can do 15.
Are you thinking morning? What do you have? I know I have some, I know that I have 2 appointments, but one's like. I can check with Anna. Did we say no on the 15th?
Jamie can't do the morning.
3 o'clock, something else, it's fine. I'll make it work. I can have someone cover.
For what?
I've got 2 appointments. I know one's at 3 and I don't know what the other one is, but I know it's something. It's okay. I don't put stuff in my phone. I'm paper, pencil, calendar on my refrigerator.
Can you guys, Nate, what were the 3 days you can't do next week?
Well, depends on that. What time are you thinking on this? Like 16th? Could we do morning?
Could you guys do 16th in the morning?
I've got something at 11:30. So
I've got something from 10 to 11.
Again, Thursday morning.
What about Friday morning or Friday?
Friday afternoon.
Friday is the foundation golf tournament, for anybody
What?
participating in that.
I know.
Heads up.
I'm not going, so.
I'll be at that, I signed up for it.
Tuesday?
Much as I'd love to be in.
What do you have
What
on?
about Tuesday the
can you do-
14th?
I'm nothing on the Tuesday.
I can do Tuesday.
Kid,
14th?
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 No?
What time on the 14th?
I think everyone's kind of open on that one. No, you
So you
can't?
can't do the 14th?
Tuesdays are like mine.
But hang out here.
So Tuesday's your busy day, so it looks like 15th is probably our best day. So 15th in the afternoon.
What happened to the 14th?
Okay.
Oh, like, I thought we all
I'm
liked
sorry, what time?
14th.
Wednesday the 15th in the
Mhm.
afternoon. I'm open,
Create
but-
an
It's
event.
all open. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
Monday,
just sooner the better here. I mean,
so 1,
yeah.
okay.
Wait, wait a minute. When is our, no, it's at noon, isn't it?
I feel like we have.
We don't have one next
Meeting
week.
15th.
Oh, but it might be like committee meeting or something. Are you talking about the continuous?
Oh,
meetings?
that's
We're
right.
off the 15th.
No, the.
No, we were off last week. We're on this week.
8th, and then the next one's the 22nd.
Right, right.
Okay,
So we're off the 15th.
sweet.
Goodness. Okay.
Well, if we
So-
can figure that out, we should be able to get the rest.
Pretty
of it
busy for a
done.
pandemic.
So the next question is that we would like to have it, so if teachers would like to come and watch live, that they could. So we didn't know if it was possible to do something like in the auditorium where we would be on the stage,
Don't say that too loud.
No.
Right, that was my goal.
I'm gonna be up above, just projecting.
Yeah.
But if we did it, then teachers could social distance. And I didn't know if there was a better venue for teachers to be able to come.
Let's plan on doing it at the high school. We'll figure out what makes the most sense.
Okay. I mean, even if we did the library,
We did the board meeting in the band room. And there's way more room in there than you think there is.
Right.
Wasn't bad.
And the way we set ourselves up.
Yeah.
Library good, right? Plenty of tables.
Yeah, the
But yeah,
library
I
would
say
be
libraries
good.
already got tables, they wouldn't have to set anything up,
Yeah, but are
right?
you gonna set, how many people at a table? I mean,
I don't know.
yeah.
we'll figure it out.
Okay.
I don't want the tables to mean we can't spread people out, because you're gonna put one person at a table, and we only have 20 tables.
A lot of the tables they have in there now are those.
Oh, there's
modular
funny
ones that
tables,
you
that's
can
right.
pull apart. Like, not
Yeah.
every single one, but a lot of them are. So-
Whatever. They have a technical word, not funny, I don't know what they are. Blended learning, there you go.
Okay. So let's plan on the high school and then maybe we can figure out the exact room and we'll let everyone know.
And when's
So,
that making? Sorry.
Wednesday the 15th at 1.
Cool.
Anything else?
I think that is all from us.
Everybody's just excited to be out of their house. It's really what's it about.
Yeah.
Chance to get out and walk
I
around.
could be on my boat.
You could be on your boat.
I think my kids are just happy for us to be able to. I came back the first day after summer school and my kids were like, "You are so happy, Mom." And I was like,
Because I'm not stuck with you all.
I'm not with you guys, and I was in the building. I was kind of bragging to other people that were educators, but